Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that they want to talk about. And this evening, my guest is David Delk, or David E. Delk. And he's a longtime friend of mine. He's been on the show as a guest a number of times. He is also a broadcast journalist in his own right. He hosts and produces the Populist Dialogues. But he's got something pretty important going on tonight, so I wanted him to come on my show and tell you viewers about it, because what he's about in his life, as long as I've known him for some time now, he is a real progressive political activist who walks the talk, and I appreciate you and love you for that.
Great, thank you. And I'm trying to talk the walk, so.
How'd you say that? So, as you well know, the first half of the show, the first quarter of the show, or whatever it is about who you are personally. And my viewers haven't seen you for a while. There'll be some new viewers who haven't seen you at all, so I want them to know a little more about who you are personally and how you got to be the way that you are. I know how you got to be the way. Never mind the ad libs. Let's go
Okay,
with it.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. Can I interject right away?
Please.
Actually, I don't produce the Populist Dialogues any longer, and we did that cable program for 4 years, and it got to be actually too much work for me, and so I did give it up. Although I am going to be producing 2 Populist Dialogue specials in a couple of weeks, so they're not totally gone, but they've gone kind of irregular schedule.
Okay, Populist Dialogues are irregular specials on Populist Dialogues, which is an excellent program, and I'm sad that you gave it up because you have so darn many things you're doing, pursuing your life's work of being a rabble-rouser and a progressive activist.
I'm hoping to be able to bring it back at some point, but not right now.
Yeah. How are you feeling right now?
Great.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Not as good as you, but pretty good. I'm doing well.
Okay. You have new glasses.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more interruptions?
No.
No more ad-libbing.
No.
Let's get started here.
All right.
On achieving fair elections and clean governance. On achieving fair elections and clean governance. Boy, that's an ambitious goal here. There's going to be a lot you'll be telling us about that, what that means.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we'll spend some time on that. Yep.
Okay.
Right.
And your full name? You know the routine.
Yeah, David Delk.
Okay.
David E. Delk.
Where did the E come from?
My mother gave it to me.
Why is it written in small e?
I just wanted to do something that was different than what most everybody else does, and so I was like, so I shortened it. And my big quandary now is, should I put a period after the E or leave it off? What do you think?
Let's continue on with the show. You're a delight to hang out with, buddy. So, when and where were you born?
I was born here in Portland, Oregon.
And a native?
Yeah, I'm a native Oregonian. Yeah, 1950.
50.
Yeah.
That makes you
65 almost.
Oh boy, you're getting to be old.
Well, yeah, and I felt for sure that I had actually achieved that distinction of being old when I got my my Medicare card in the mail a couple of weeks ago. I was like, yes, this proves that I am now old.
How'd you feel when you saw it there in writing?
I felt just fine about it.
Okay.
I felt just fine about it. Yeah, because life is good, so you celebrate it.
First trick question?
Sure.
Why were you born?
Why was I born?
Why did everybody repeat that question? Why
because
was I born?
Nobody thinks about that.
Of course.
I know that when I was young, I asked that question. And I don't think that I ever came to a satisfactory answer. But at some point during my life, I stopped asking and just accepted that here I am.
Here I am.
Here I am.
Okay.
Right. So.
Anything significant about your cultural or national heritage that's worth mentioning now?
No, I don't really know a whole lot about it, other than my mother was German. I didn't know my father, so I don't really know anything about him. I understood that the Delk name might be Dutch, but I don't really know if that's the case or not. So I really don't know anything about it. And frankly, it's one of those things that I couldn't care less about.
I thought you were always looking for answers.
Not everything. That was one of the things I don't really care about.
A religious preference, you got one of those.
Well, I belong to the Unitarian Church downtown, First Unitarian Church.
Is that a religion?
Some people think it is, and others don't. You know, it is a recognized church, and it is a recognized religion, and it's worldwide. Originally started in Transylvania, and originally started out as a Christian religion, and it emphasized that there is. I don't know very much about religion, and so in spite of the fact that I'm in a church, I don't know very much about it, and I don't really care too much about religion either. So I do know that they rejected the doctrine that there was a Father and a Mother and a Holy Ghost. I guess that's that trilogy, and said that actually they are.
You do
one.
pretty good for not knowing about religion.
That's about it. So anyway, so that's why they call it Unitarians, is because they saw that as a single person, and they saw it as being embedded in each one of us, not as being exterior to us.
So that fits for you as a model to consider about what's important. And
Yeah. And of course, Unitarians are known for their social activism, political activism, and economic activism, for that matter. There's a lot of people in the Unitarian Church, even just downtown in Portland, who are major activists in various ways and endeavors. So I feel quite comfortable there.
I know you would. When we get a little further on, your people will appreciate why did you feel comfortable there. If I may, your formal education, any thing about that would be of interest to the viewers?
Well, I graduated from grade school.
Did you go any higher than that?
Well, in fact, yes, I did. Yes. Yeah, and then I went to Lincoln High School and graduated from there in 4 years. Those were the days when it was expected that you would graduate in 4 years, as opposed to now when so many don't graduate at all. Which is really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. And so then from there I went to Portland State University and graduated there in 4 years because I had no money and I didn't have any money to stay in school any longer, so I had to do it in 4 years. So I did. And then I, at one point, a few years later, started a graduate program in labor history. But there again, I couldn't afford it, so I never did finish that. So yeah.
Have you had any other education other than the School of Hard Knocks worth mentioning?
No, I can't think so. I have gotten some education at Portland Community Media in terms of how to host and organize a cable access program. There was some education there, and I do in fact feel like you never, even if you resist it, you never cease being in the process of being educated. It's a lifelong process. So I'm constantly reading and hopefully gaining a knowledge and understanding of the earth and my fellow human beings. So, yeah.
Have you figured me out yet?
No. You're one unto yourself.
Thank you. Yeah.
You are one of those people you described in the entry, unique human beings.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
You retired not too long ago from actually working, and you're doing more now in your retirement than when you had a job.
Yeah. Well, I do different more than I did then. And it's been just over 3 years, and I've never been sorry that I left employment and got into retirement.
I would like to ask you what you're doing now in your retirement life, but we've only got an hour to do the show.
Well, I do keep busy.
Say a little bit about what you're involved with now with your activism and what's important in your life.
Uh-huh.
And I admire you for what you're doing. You're a rare individual. Please say some more on your own.
Well, one very important part of my life is Tom, my partner, Tom. And
neat guy.
yeah, he and I have been together for, well, we'll just say over 20 years. I can't remember just if it's 21 or 22 or something like that. Yeah. Well, he's a sweetheart. And,
He is.
He's a very caring person, and I'm very lucky to have him in my life. So, as long as he keeps thinking that about me too, we're good.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
Yeah. And then I have been involved with, well, most of what I do actually comes from my childhood. When we grew up very poor, we were on welfare, and that was also a time when welfare actually was a program that they did try to get you off of it, but not the way they do now, where they had, where now you have 5 years and then you're off and you better not come back.
So things are different now than they
Things are most definitely different now. So it made a big difference, but being on welfare, we were poor, and we went to, the grade school I went to was kind of a mix of middle class and poor kids. And I went to Lincoln High School, which is upper middle class primarily, with a few poor kids. And so that really, it was really clear the difference. And these were rich kids, but they were upper middle class.
Sure.
And so where my brother and I stayed home all the weekends and didn't have a whole lot to do. When we got back to school, then we would hear the other kids talking about going skiing and these trips that they would go, on, and what they did during summer vacation, and we were always home. So it was definitely, you could definitely see the difference, the contrast between what our economic status was and how that played out.
And you weren't aware of that before?
Well, those things, you kind of develop that more in high school than you do in grade school. And when I was in school, again in Portland, it was 1 through 8 and then high school for 4 years. And
sure.
Now, of course, there's all kinds of combinations of years and schools and stuff that people go through. But at any rate, so that feeling of being really poor and the difference that made in my life, in contrasting with the other kids that I was around, really made a difference in terms of my consciousness. That was something that I'll say it weighed on me. And then also, at the same time, when I was in grade school, not grade school, in my later years of high school and then college, is Vietnam War. And I was very opposed to those things, or opposed to that war in particular at that time.
Sure.
And the other thing that helped form me was watching TV in 1964. What happened in 1964?
Vietnam War?
No.
Tell me.
Civil rights.
Civil rights.
Martin Luther King.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that whole thing. And watching the Selma Bridge incident.
Yeah.
And the attack of the police on the African American people that were standing up for their rights. That had a tremendous influence on me, just in terms of saying, this is not the way any of us should have to live. Being poor, I had a real identification with them on the bridge. That while our skin colors were different, our economic statuses were very similar, and that when they were fighting for me. And I was only 13, 14 years old, but still that consciousness was developing. Most definitely.
It had a real effect on you.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life.
Yeah.
it's had some
Yeah.
influence on your decisions and your opinions and what you're doing
Yeah.
with your life.
And the thing that I remember most distinctly thinking to myself is, when I get older, I am not going to forget.
And you were aware of that earlier on.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
haven't forgotten. And I've tried to live with that knowledge, or what knowledge that gave me,
Uh-huh.
to kind of frame and push me in what I think are the right direction. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you belong to a bunch of organizations, huh?
yeah, I do. I do.
We've only got an hour, so
You want
name
to
a
tell
few
you
of
about
the
a couple of them?
important
Oh,
ones.
okay. All right. Well,
And there's so many things. I
Yeah.
should start, but I'll let you because I will not remember all the ones that. And I say you belong to them because you're active in those organizations. And
Yeah.
I don't know how you have any time to sleep. I do admire you
yeah.
for the work you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Walk in the
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
Please
So
do.
Alliance for Democracy is my main organization, which is a national group, and I'm the national co-chair, and then I'm also the president of the Portland chapter, and our Portland chapter has been active for about 15 years, working on these same kind of issues.
And I'm a member of your chapter too.
Yes, and I'm very grateful for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and our mission is ending corporate domination, establishing true democracy, and creating a just society based on an equitable, sustainable economy. So we cover, broadly, and our motto is, the issue is not the issue is the system. So what we focus on are primary issues of how do we change the system. So that kind of is a structure for all the other kinds of things that I do. So beyond that, I'm also on the state council of the Oregon Progressive Party.
I'm a member of that too.
Yes, right. Yes, and I am the president of the East Side Democratic Club.
At Portland, East Side.
Yeah, which is not connected to the Democratic Party. It's little d Democratic.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about the two political
right,
parties.
Yes, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the duopoly.
And I've been
Right.
promising to come over and see what you do over there because I'm so aware of what you do at the Unitarian Church and
Yeah.
other venues, and I'm going to make time to get over there because
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
sort of like you. I'm not as busy as you are, but in my own way, I'm perhaps
Uh-huh.
as busy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that club meets once a month on the first Tuesday of the month at 12 o'clock at the Grace Presbyterian Church at 60th and Cully, Northeast 60th and Cully.
Mhm.
So if anybody
In
out there
Portland.
wants to join us, it's open to the public. We have 2 speakers each month talking about a variety of issues, and we welcome anybody to show up.
So you say the East Side Democratic Party, but you made a point of saying it's not part of the Democratic Party as it stands today.
Yes.
Why did you make that point?
Well, because we have had Democrats who come to the party thinking that we're all Democrats and addressing us as if we were, and then we always have to clarify it. So, and I just
Small
feel
D
like,
Democratic Party.
yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that we're not supporting the Democratic Party itself, although some of us do. Although I would guess most of us don't.
You're
some of us
anticipating
do.
my questions.
Right, yeah, right. So anyway, we're we just want to make that clear. That we're not part of the Democratic Party. It's just the same as if we meet in a church, but we're not religious.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the general population at each one of your meetings at the East Side Portland Democratic Party?
We get 20 to 25 people generally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
It's been growing recently, and hopefully, as a result of being on this program, we'll grow a little more. Yeah.
Wow. And what other organizations are you active in?
Oh, okay. Well, there's also Healthcare for All Oregon. And Healthcare for All Oregon
If he looks sleepy, you know why. He doesn't get any sleep. Healthcare for All Oregon.
Yeah.
Say something about that.
Healthcare for All Oregon is the group in Oregon which advocates for a single-payer healthcare system. So it would be like an improved Medicare system for everybody, universal not leaving anybody out, and improve, because as we know, I was just talking with one of the people here.
Cool people.
Yes, talking about it and saying about how if you go certain places or to certain doctors, they won't treat you if you're on Medicare.
Were you talking to Ellery, our director?
No.
You shouldn't talk to Ellery.
Oh, I wasn't talking to Ellery.
He's going to get me. He's giving me a
But now,
look.
of course, I'm going to have to talk to Ellery. So.
Yes. So please go on. I'm not going to interrupt you anymore.
Right, yeah. So there are these kind of organizations throughout the nation that are advocating for a single-payer healthcare system. And we got Obamacare, which is an advance over what we had, but it was the first law that actually requires everyone to buy something. And in this case, they have to buy health insurance. And the system hasn't really worked real well, and there are so many people who still are not covered for health care. And it's our feeling that health care is a human right. It's not something that we should have to purchase in order to access it. It shouldn't be something that's available to the wealthy or just middle-class people. It shouldn't be based on who your employer is. It should be based on the fact that you're alive.
Yes.
Okay.
Are we going to ever achieve health care for all in this country?
Well, it's going to be a while. But here in Oregon, we are working on a couple of steps to move us in that direction. There's actually if people want to call their Oregon state representative or senators, there's a bill called HB 2828, which would fund a study of healthcare alternatives in Oregon and help determine how viable single payer is against 3 other alternative methods. And so, clearly, I would like to see people making that call and letting our legislators know that we support single payer and we support funding the study. So there you go.
Okay, you talked about your partner and your political persuasion. We don't know where you're politically on the continuum. Will you tell the viewers whether you're a leftist or rightist or a Tea Party or a what? Anarchist?
Generally, I would be regarded as on the left. Yes. On the left, yes. Yeah. And really, I usually like to describe myself more as a populist than being left or right or liberal or conservative. I generally line up with more liberal or leftist kind of things, but the difference in describing myself as a populist is I really want to focus on the question about the power of corporations in our society versus the power of the people. And that historically the populist was a movement in the 1880s and after, and the populists were rural, dirt-poor farmers in West Texas who formed this organization, and they said, why are we always so poor? And the answer was because of the railroads and the banks. And so they very clearly defined the source of their misery. And they didn't say it was government, they didn't say it was religion, they didn't say anything, they didn't blame other races, they clearly said it's the banks and it's the railroads that keep us poor. And it was a very strong movement for a period of time. They ran someone for president at one point. They were active here in Oregon. In fact, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. We had a couple of governors who were populists. Although they ran probably as Democrats and were elected as Democrats, but they were probably populist Democratic Party alliances that formed. So I just want to make that distinction. I would really much prefer to be known as a populist.
Like Jim Hightower of Texas?
Jim Hightower is a great guy, yes.
Great guy.
Yes,
We only have very few people in politics anymore who are that objective. are that neutral, where I can trust
Yeah.
their opinions and their
Yeah.
views. And I'm glad that they're around because I can't read everything and cover all sources.
Yeah, and he has his monthly newsletter, which is just wonderful.
Yeah.
As soon as I get it every month, I open it up and read
of
it.
course,
It's got 8 pages
right.
long, and yeah, I get so much out of it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we're running out of time. We should take a break pretty soon here. Oh, one more question. Persons from the past, or alive today, who you looked up to or admired. Any names come to mind of people you really admired in the past, from the past, or alive today? Names.
Well, yeah, I can think of a number. Well, one is Lloyd Marbett.
Lloyd Marbett.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know
yes,
Lloyd
you know Lloyd
Marbett.
I'm sure he's been on the program here.
Say a few words about Lloyd. He's a terrific guy. Good
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, Lloyd Marbett was in the late 60s and 70s. He opposed the Trojan nuclear plant and ran a couple of initiative campaigns to close it down. And he was unsuccessful at those, but in the end, Portland General Electric closed Trojan plant because it was leaking. And it was just shortly after they had spent millions of dollars to defeat Lloyd's initiative. Even at that point, knowing that it was leaking, they were still opposing this initiative, and then they closed it down because of all the leaks. And so that was I remember him from those times. I didn't know him then. Yeah. And then he was also very active in our measures 46 and 47 for limiting campaign contributions 10 years ago. That's where I really started getting to know him. But very
Talk
strong
about
environmental activist.
old-fashioned rabble rouser for sure. You're a quiet rabble rouser,
yes.
but boy, that was out there in your face.
Yeah,
He's been on the show a number of times.
In fact, I've been on the show with him.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to get a word in.
He's beautiful. He is beautiful.
He is wonderful.
And any other names come to mind before we take a break?
Well, Dan Meek is another one.
Who's Dan Meek?
Dan Meek is a public interest attorney here in Portland, actually a friend of Lloyd Marbett's. They worked together on a lot of issues. I mentioned measures 46 and 47. He wrote those two measures 10 years ago to limit campaign contributions, and we're going to talk about, after the break, this thing I'm working on now, and he and I wrote that together. And so he has sued utilities and recouped millions of dollars back for ratepayers as a result of those suits. Really excellent person.
Talking about your radical leftists there. We've covered them all now. Yeah, so we take a break now, then we'll come back and talk about the subject of tonight's show. Oh, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, you're watching Conversations with Dr. Don. And this show is an ongoing series. This is one of an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, where we talk about what my guest wants to talk about and any other things that come up along the way. And my repeat guest, David Delk, will talk about all kinds of stuff, and we can go on forever and ever. So let's keep going with the topic of today's show. We're going to talk about achieving fair elections and clean governance. You want to talk about TPP and fast track. TPP, what is that?
Well, TPP is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and that is a well-kept secret, although it's percolating a little bit into people's knowledge because it is imminent. It's on the horizon of being released on us, and it's a NAFTA-style trade agreement with between 12 nations, including the United States, Canada, Mexico, Japan, New Zealand, Malaysia, the Philippines, Japan, and it would cover 40% of the world's economy, so it's huge. And the Obama administration, has been negotiating this agreement for 5 years. Actually, it's almost close to 6 years now.
What's it supposed to be about? What is it? Why does the organization exist?
Well,
TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Well, it doesn't actually exist yet, but they're negotiating it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But the purpose of it is my usual characterization is that this is a corporate coup. And the reason I say that is that it's been negotiated, number one, it's been negotiated by 600 primarily corporate advisors who have written sometimes or advised on the content of the agreement. And it covers a tremendous amount of the world's economy and activities between these 12 countries.
And just beyond trade, too.
And much, much beyond trade. The agreement itself has 29 chapters. Only 5 of those are about traditional trade quotas and tariffs and that sort of thing. Yeah. The rest of it is all about other stuff. And the other stuff includes access to medicines, access to the internet, public procurement, environment, regulating labor.
That's going to regulate the entire social behavior and structure of the world.
Oh, yes. Financial yeah. And banking is a huge one, part of this. And so this would establish a framework for how the whole world operates. And it does not give power to governments. It takes power away from governments. And it takes power away from both national governments, state governments, and local governments.
That's powerful.
It is. Let me give you an example, local government.
Please.
Public procurement is something that nobody ever really thinks of. This is where government goes out and buys whatever it is they need, whether it might be services or it might be products or so forth. There are provisions in this agreement which say that if you have a clause in a local contract that says that you have to provide a certain amount of built in America product in the contract, it says that all of the companies that are operating in these 12 countries will all be considered as American.
What
it's hard to
it's hard to grasp.
It's hard to grasp.
Crazy.
The whole point of Buy American clauses is to and other Buy Local clauses is to stimulate our economy. Well, now what we're saying with the TPP is that if you specify, or if a government unit, if the city of Portland specifies that the product will be made in America or will be made and sourced from local labor, then all of these other countries and all of the companies in those countries will be able to say, I am an American too.
Well, what does that do about working conditions and wages of American workers?
Well, it has really a devastating effect on it, and not only because of that particular clause, but the whole purpose of these agreements is to free capital to roam the world looking for the lowest. And if American workers have to compete against a Vietnamese worker who is making 63 cents on average per hour, there is no competition. Our workers simply can't compete against that. And Nike wants to build shoes in Vietnam. And so they're very much in favor of this Trans-Pacific Partnership. And of course, they used to want to build shoes in China because China was the low-wage supplier. But China is no longer the low-wage country. Vietnam now is. And so Nike wants to have a easy way of moving production to Vietnam.
So corporations are constantly looking for the cheapest way to make their product to sell.
Yes, right. And they're also looking for the countries with the lowest environmental protections.
Yeah.
And the scary thing about the TPP is these investor protection clauses, which say that if we pass laws or regulations at probably any level of government that protects the environment or protects labor, then and therefore impinges on the ability of these companies to make future profits, that they can sue in these secret tribunal courts to recoup, to either overturn the law or to get paid for their lost profits.
So this is a whole nother level above national levels of scrutiny and management of economies.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's not there won't be any coming back to a national court. Whatever they decide is what it will be. And it will never come back. You know, we have this whole system of courts where it goes through, you know, the original suit and the appeals and so forth up to possibly the Supreme Court. Well, that is tossed, and you have this new court system, which is just a single court. And there's 3 judges on these tribunals, and they're all corporate lawyers or lobbyists.
Enough.
Okay.
You're making me sick. I'm
Yeah.
going to throw up.
Yeah. So let me tell you what we really want to do right now.
How about fast track?
Today is Thursday, June 11th. Possibly tomorrow, Fast Track Authority will be voted on in Congress.
What does fast track mean?
Fast Track is a special mechanism for approving these corporate trade agreements like NAFTA and CAFTA, and all of these have gone through and been approved using Fast Track Authority. And what it does is it says that the president will be able to negotiate the agreement and sign the agreement and then present it to Congress. Congress will have limited time to debate it. So forget filibusters.
It's kind of thick, isn't it?
It's very thick. It's very thick, yes. This is going to be 29 chapters. And I understood that the NAFTA agreement, which was the first one we did, was 1,000 pages. So this is going to be huge. So anyway, limited time to review it and limited time to debate it. They said based on the amount of time that they've given for debate, each congressperson will have 83 minutes to speak.
On these 29 chapters.
On these 29 chapters. And then they go and vote. And they can only vote yes or no. There's no amendments allowed. So it totally turns most of these typical, what we consider as part of the democratic process, on their heads.
Where's democracy?
And there is no democracy in it. So,
what a coup. What a coup.
Yeah, not only do we lose the democracy in terms of this fast track process, but then if the trade agreements are enacted, then we lose democracy again because our decision making is subject to review and overthrow by these private trade tribunals.
So governance and management of the system, the social system, the political system will be in the hands of the super rich that class of people,
Yes.
and ordinary citizens and poor people and working people will be so subordinate until we need more austerity to be sure these guys can continue to make more money.
Oh, absolutely. It's all important. All important. Right.
Are you in favor of fast track?
No, I'm not, and I'm hoping that. So I'm hoping that everyone watching this will have paid attention to whether it did or didn't pass, and if it did not pass on or get voted on June 12th, that means that there were not probably enough votes in Congress at that point. So there's going to be tremendous pressure on all of our elected representatives to fall in line. And so we need to exert the same kind of pressure and make the phone calls to our representatives and tell them all of our U.S. representatives are elected every 2 years. Let them know that you're not going to forget how they vote. And this is particularly important here in Oregon because this agreement was negotiated by President Obama, the Democrat. It is primarily supported at this point by the Republicans in Congress. There are some Democrats who also support it. And of those Democrats, 3 of them are here in Oregon. So Representative Blumenauer, Representative Schrader, and Representative Bonamici have all said that they're going to vote yes on this. They need to hear loud and clear that we are not going to forget how they voted, and it will be an election issue when they come back up for election in November of next year.
And you have a phone number.
Yes, there is. Yeah. So the number is 855-712-7845. That goes to Congress, and you just ask for your representative.
Yeah.
So no on fast track.
This march toward further redistribution of wealth.
Well, yeah, and that is that is the other part of this whole thing is it does redistribute wealth. It redistributes power most definitely, and it's not in our favor.
Are you some kind of a socialist?
I think I said earlier.
I know what you said.
I regard myself as a populist, not necessarily as a socialist, but I admire many socialists. Right.
Let's move on, okay?
Yeah.
10 years ago, you were trying to limit special interest money in elections. That's what you were involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're trying to do that again. What are you doing? You've been talking about it so far and
right.
doing a pretty good job of it. And the major provisions of this Fair Elections and Clean Governance Initiative, what are the major provisions of that?
Okay, all right. So first of all, 10 years ago, I was one of the chief petitioners of Measure 46. And Measure 46 and 47 were 2 companion ballot measures that would have controlled money in the political system. Mm-hmm. And Measure 46 was a constitutional amendment that said that we could do so, and Measure 47 was the set of limitations. And so we passed Measure 47, but we didn't pass Measure 46. So the Secretary of State and the Attorney General in Oregon, including the last one, who is now our Governor, Kate Brown, refused to enforce the law that we passed. And so because it has not been enforced, we have, coupled with the Citizens United decision on the part of the Supreme Court 5 years ago, we have seen a lot more money coming into the political system. And of course, it's not like there was a shortage of money beforehand. We had a lot of money before, and now there is a tremendous amount of money which is flowing into the system. It is not being addressed. The problem is not being addressed at the federal level.
What about freedom of speech?
Well,
isn't money speech?
Money is not speech. And as you know, that's one of my other issues is advocating for a 28th Amendment that says specifically that corporations are not people and that money is not speech. Money is property. And when we regard money as being speech and we allow it to be spent freely and without much in the way of restrictions, then our ability, yours and my ability to have any impact on decision making it flies out the window.
Well, don't the super rich care about ordinary people like you and I?
I think there are some super rich that do care about ordinary people like you and I, but there are a lot of super rich people that couldn't care less. All they really are concerned with is greed.
What are you going to do about greed,
Well,
David?
well, you need. That's one of the reasons why we have government, and
Okay.
actually, it's one of the reasons why we have religion also. Is to hopefully religion will put some moral fiber into people, and so that they'll understand that greed is not a moral activity.
Has it been successful so far, religion?
No,
What
not
will
very.
be successful
It
in
can
controlling?
be. It does inform people, but
I'm looking
I
for
lost.
regulation.
Yes, regulation. That was where I was going. Then I lost my thought there.
Excuse
Thank
me.
you. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the purpose of these activities is to set up a structure, a governmental structure with laws and regulations that says what people with excessive amounts of money can do with it. And one of the things that we believe that they should not be doing is spending money to the point of buying our elections. And so we have here in Portland, Dan Meek, who I mentioned earlier,
Great guy.
and I have written this new charter amendment, so a charter for Multnomah County. So a charter is like the county's constitution that sets the framework for how the county works. And so we have written this initiative which would do three things. It would limit campaign contributions and expenditures. It would require clear disclosure of who funds political ads, and not only in terms of identifying the person, but also identifying what their economic or business interest is.
Well, you're really stretching it.
We are. And then the last major provision has to do with county officials who are elected, and it has to do with conflicts of interest. And it says that if an elected official would benefit over a certain amount of money, I forget what the level was, over a certain amount of money, then they need to either not participate in the discussions of that measure, or if it comes for a vote, they need to recluse themselves and step aside from the vote. Currently, there are almost no conflict of interest rules in Oregon.
So you need some rules and regulations.
Yes,
Who
rules.
makes the regulations?
Well, we're going to try to. That's what our initiative
And
does.
presently now, who makes the regulations that we live by? Leading you into something now.
Yes, I know you are.
The government,
yes,
right? The
right,
House
yes.
and the Senate and those people.
Yes.
And who are they? Effectively, with the money
Well,
flowing freely, the super rich, right?
At the moment, they are influenced primarily by the super rich and the multinational corporations, the same corporations we were just talking about with regard to the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
And you're
So
do
that's the
something about that.
tie-in with these two issues. Is that we're talking about the super rich and the corporations, primarily multinational corporations, that dominate the decisions that we make, and all of that domination, for most people today, feel that their voice is never heard,
And it
and
really
it leads
is,
it leads to people who are passive, who don't think that they should be actively involved, because even if they are actively involved, their decisions are going to get overruled. And so, part of doing this initiative is to activate people to say, we are the decision makers. And
Are we heading for a revolution in this country?
well, I don't know. That's
I don't know either.
I don't know if we are or not.
In these kinds of situations, in the existing regimes, according to the past history, doesn't it happen where the peasants get mad enough where they overthrow the existing government?
Well, and that certainly is the story of the founding of this nation.
Ta-da!
Truly, it was like before the Declaration of Independence. Massachusetts. I was just reading this book, The People's History of the Revolution, a wonderful book.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about what happened in Massachusetts, where the farmers, Great Britain passed a new law and put the colonies' courts and all the other officials under their control.
Yes.
And sent new judges over to administer. And when those judges came to Massachusetts, they were not allowed to sit in their courtrooms. The peasants, the farmers, gathered with their pitchforks and their rifles and prevented them and made them march up and down, confessing their sins, if you will, and did not allow those courts to actually operate. And that was the beginning of the American Revolution. And of course, it was declared a little bit later.
We better start a new business making pitchforks.
Yes, yes.
Because
Right,
I
yeah.
think there's going to be a revolt, a revolution. I'm just afraid it's going to be a violent one based on history. And I guess there have been revolutions or revolts that are not overtly violent, and things have changed significantly. The question in my mind is, can capitalism, or this kind of system that we have in America, can be reformed? Does it need to be so radically changed that a new system needs to be put in place to replace predatory monopoly capitalism today?
Yes, I think that we definitely need to move in that direction, and the quicker that we move in that direction, the better off we're going to be. And particularly if you think about climate and climate change, having corporations pursue their bottom line as their major rationale for how they behave, we're doomed if corporations continue to be allowed to do that.
So we've got to make some changes and take charge of our government so that our voices are heard.
Yes, right. Yeah. So but the thing which will get us there more than anything else is getting the money out of the politics. And we would like to see this happen at the national level. We would like to see it happen at the state level. It's not happening at either one of those at this point. So we're doing this initiative so that we can model good behavior, if you will, for the nation. This bill, this measure, this initiative has all of the basic elements in it that would help us gain control of our political life in this city, in this county. It's a county measure.
Yes.
And would be a good model for what could happen around the nation.
The left coast of America.
Yes. Yes.
Oregon, Portland.
Yes. Yeah. And I will say also, this is one thing. The other thing that that I've worked on, of course, is this 28th Constitutional Amendment to say that corporations are not people and money is not speech, and that corporations do not have constitutional rights. Constitutional rights are things that you and I have. That would make a tremendous difference. And I will, in spite of my frequent criticism of Representative Earl Blumenauer, point out to people that he has now committed to co-sponsor the We the People Amendment in Congress, which would establish exactly that. So, right, yeah. And I haven't actually seen him do that, but we have one of his high staff members who said that they have instructions to get him signed on. So I will say that. But so that's one thing we need to do. We need to do this measure. We need to do it at the state level. We obviously need to do it at the county level. It all starts local. If we can start getting control of the money in the political system, I think that we can avoid that violent revolution that you're worried about, but still have one, but have it peaceful.
There is a glimmer of hope someplace on the near horizon.
Yes.
I'm aware of time running out. We've got a few minutes left, and I want to allow enough time for you to be spontaneous and address the viewers with whatever's on your mind, what we've talked about so far, or anything else that you have going that the viewers would be useful for them to hear, David.
Well,
look in the camera and talk to them.
The first thing would be to call your representative at that number that we gave you before, 855-712-7845, and voice your opposition to Fast Track and to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That would be a number one thing. The other thing would be to go to our website for this campaign, for this initiative campaign, which is mult.fairelection.org, and read the material on there, join the campaign, click on the volunteer button and let us hear from you. Help us gather the signatures. It's going to take 27,000 plus valid signatures to get it on the ballot. And of course, campaigns run on money as well as human labor, volunteers, right? Yeah, and so make a donation to the campaign.
Yeah, and for you viewers in other communities and cities around the country and any place where these kinds of disparity is going on between the different classes, and this will give you some courage or some hope to start something in your area to take back our country from the super rich and the ruling elite and those who don't really care about the welfare of ordinary citizens.
Right. Yeah, I would recommend if people are watching in other areas to contact us, get the language, present it in your own communities, and see if you can't get it get it on the ballot there, or whatever the mechanism might be.
Oh, David. You'll enjoy visiting with David and contacting him and talking about this kind of things that are so critically important to save this wonderful, beautiful experiment in decent citizenship and loving one another. So I'm supposed to thank you now for watching this show, and I am going to thank you right now. Thanks for, and remember KFC, my favorite, not that KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too, and especially you. And you, nurse, and you, David, and all of you out there. Thanks again. Good night. See you next time.